Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speed here, and today I want to talk about how to play URSA. Just as a hero in general. I've been seeing this hero a lot in my pubs as of late, and as a result I'm like, yeah, I want to talk about it because in my opinion, URSA is very misunderstood right now. It's one of those heroes where, you know, it hasn't really changed in forever. I mean, the Q, to be fair, was slightly changed. You guys remember the day where URSA Q, he just stood still and clapped the ground? Well, it's been a while since even that was changed. So the hero's been about the same, but only about the same. I want to nonetheless talk about his laning stage, how to get off to a good start, the defusal build that people are going right now, and in general, how to approach team fights and farming to maximize efficiency on URSA. By the way, guys, if you want to become absolutely broken, well, what you need to do is sign up to the GameLeap website down below right now. The reason why you should do that is because every single day we post a new video there. Content that you simply just will never get on YouTube, we post every single day to the website. It's really top tier stuff. I'm very proud of what I make over there. We also have other creators, many of my great friends who are top tier Dota players, creating guides about different heroes, different roles, different items, skill builds, talent builds, everything you need to know to get to the next rank. So if you feel a little bit lost, you're a little bit stuck, click the link down below. I'll see you guys there. Alright, now let's get into the laning stage. The thing is, URSA used to be a really strong lane dominator, but now the hero just isn't really that anymore. And so basically what I'm going to be recommending, guys, is whenever you pick URSA, or if you do decide to pick URSA in pubs, look at your support or talk to your support and hope or make sure that they pick a sustain hero. So what I mean by that, a couple of options that I recommend are Io. I think Witch Doctor is fantastic. Abaddon, Warlock is honestly good. And so the reason why is because URSA just has sustain issues. Frankly, your hero is a 4-armor hero, which is like okay for you know, an agi melee carry. It's all right compared to something like Naga and TB. You're not that tanky, so there's that. You obviously don't do very much damage at level 1. You have 46 base damage, so you have to prep things with Fury Swipes, meaning you're basically going to consistently be in melee range, taking a bunch of damage. And so essentially, how you need to look at URSA right now is a hero that just needs to get good last hits. It needs to come online later on, but specifically Fury Swipes almost double in damage from level 1 to 2. It actually used to be exactly double, now it's not, which was recently buffed a little bit. But nonetheless, keep this in mind. Your hero is not strong early on. Even when he hits level 4 in this laning stage, we'll see an opportunity where he goes in for a kill and actually fails, which might seem surprising, but yeah, let's talk about why. So you notice that in these early waves, he's not doing anything crazy. He's actually playing very defensive, and one thing you want to do as URSA is you never want to try to last hit. You can see even under the tower here, he's using Fury Swipes on the creeps to make the last hits 10 times easier. If you try to time things as URSA, as I said, horrible base damage, and you're almost guaranteed to miss the CS. And so instead, do exactly what he does here for every single creep, which is prep it with Fury Swipes, making your life a lot easier. Now, at level 2, you have two options. If the lane is difficult or dangerous, you want to take your Q. If you think you have guaranteed kill threat in the exact moment you hit level 2, you can take your Aftershock to pounce on top of them. In general, I'm actually a bigger fan of taking your W at level 2. I think because it's just significantly less mana and a very spammable spell, you can get a lot of value out of it to get denies, CS, and a bit of chip damage in. In this lane in particular, Angel, who is rank 2, by the way, in NA, guys, rank 2 player in NA, takes Q. And you can see in this clip here, it even lets him get out of range from a Shockwave and a Skewer combo, which is absolutely massive. So upcoming here, we're going to see the current URSA dilemma. But I also want to talk about how to find kills in the laning stage. Even though he wasn't able to actually get any kills in this laning stage, this is the perfect example of when you should be looking for a kill. In this exact scenario, the Grimstroke is very isolated. URSA needs to look for 2v1s. As we kind of talked about, you're not a very tanky hero. Your armor is mediocre, and it actually takes a long while for you to kill heroes early on, right? You actually do have to chip them down. And as a result, this is a good time to go. I think Magnus is going for a side pull at the moment, and so he's able to shift over and get some autos in. Now, unfortunately, Magnus wasn't actually that far away, and as a result, he ends up taking a very significant amount of damage. If he actually didn't have an Abaddon on his team, I would say odds are he would just be completely screwed right now. In fact, in the next minute or two, he would most likely die to a bit more chip damage, and this is why you sort of need a sustain hero. Next up, let's talk about item progression. So if your lane is really easy and you're dominating, what you should do is generally rush phase boots. After phase boots, you're going to go into the Morbid Mask for lifesteal. However, in this lane, the Magnus and the Grimstroke were constantly throwing nukes at him, so he definitely felt like he needed sustain. As a result, he rushes the Morbid Mask, and this is going to let him take neutral camps earlier on when he can approach the lane, and just in general sustain against chip damage. Once you hit level 7, basically URSA's game plan becomes very simple. More often than not, you can go for kills in pubs. Honestly, if people stay in the lane and you get ahead, you can go for kills. However, let's say that isn't the case. Generally, what you actually want to do is this farming rotation here. So it's very simple. You shove in the lane, right? Obviously, kill off the range creep first, so it does as little damage as possible, right? Kill off the range creep, shove in the wave. After that, you're going to take the large camp. After the large camp, you're going to take the wave. After taking the wave, then you go back to the small camp and you rinse repeat. Now in this next clip here, what Angel's going to do is very game specific. I just want to warn you guys around these type of plays. So what he's specifically doing here is he's actually just defending his Leshrac. His goal is really not necessarily to get a kill, but rather just to have his presence so that the Leshrac can edict around this cart wave and secure the mid tier 1 tower. I think a lot of players would look at this clip and they'd get it wrong. They'd think, oh, I should be diving mid tier 1 as URSA. Well, the thing is, this play is obviously a very well coordinated play from Team NoPing. They're obviously very much synergizing around each other's timings and making sure that they just get this tier 1 tower in a very safe way. What a lot of people do wrong in pubs is they'll show up to a mid tower fight like this, or just a mid tower in general, when there's not 5 teammates, when they don't have a hero to siege, and they'll end up just wasting time or diving and dying. So in your average pub, the much safer play to amplify your net worth and guarantee a good engagement and guarantee a good game and good net worth is just to stay in your lane. If you have the luxury to stay in your lane, farm the wave, farm the nearby camps, and rinse repeat, take it as what I said, a luxury. But regardless, let's get into early game fighting anyway. So whenever you're playing URSA, it's very important to note that at any point with your W, the duration is 20 seconds and the cooldown is significantly lower. It's about half. And as a result, in teamfights, you should be able to use double the amount of attacks. Does that make sense, right? Because if you prep it, sort of like Enchant Totem on Earthshaker when you're doing the Enchant Totem combo, if you prepare it before you go in, you get double the attacks. It seems obvious when I say it, but a lot of people just don't do this and you lose out on a stupid amount of damage. But as you can see in this clip here, preps the W, doesn't want to overextend, right? Not diving. Finds an opportunity, storm jumps the enemy team backline, that's a gap for him to jump here, secures the kill into the Grimstroke, finds Disruptor next. URSA, in the early game, always wants to look for these outside targets. The only time he would run in the middle is maybe if he had like a Drow or a Sniper in his team, and he specifically wanted the front line. But yeah, after some good movement, he's able to close the gap onto the Storm as well, pops his ulti here. I think he was fearing, I would say it's RP, but honestly, he probably just didn't have to use his ulti here. I don't think there was anything directly threatening him. Maybe an Electric Vortex. I believe that was probably the option there. But nonetheless, he's able to chase them all down. And do keep in mind, a lot of people play URSA wrong in team fights. Basically, they just stand still and hit when they overpower. You can't do that. You sort of can if, like, you blink behind them. But for the most part, as we'll see when he's going on this Magnus, he's going to hit, right? Even with overpower. So obviously, Magnus right now is right on top of him, so he doesn't have to move. But then you see that slight adjustment there? All pros do this all the time. It's called attack moving. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar, but just keep in mind, all of these top players are doing this mid-fight. Once there's even a slight gap or a potential gap coming up between him and the Magnus, where he's not going to be able to get auto attacks off anymore, he needs to shift. And once again, we'll even see that here. Hit, move, hit, and he secures the kill. And that's why this Orb of Venom is also so important in the early game. Without it, most people kind of just kite you. Next thing is Roshan. Once you hit level 10, even earlier than this, honestly, you could be level 8. You can actually take Roche with a Morbid Mask, so always keep it in mind. In your average pub, if you smoke into Roche, you're probably going to get it, and you should almost always be doing this. So please, guys, remember Roche. When you get that Morbid Mask, especially when you get this Morbid Mask Diffusal, and you hit a little bit harder, get into the pit. Now, unfortunately, this is a professional match. People aren't pushing in side lanes like his teammates. You know, they try to make a concerted effort, it gets scouted out, so they disengage. Outside of that, at the moment, he's just going to be looking to push in the wave in the nearby neutral camps. He isn't going to spend any time in the tri-camp this game. You can, like if the game is really bad and you think you're going to feed, it's actually more than good enough when you have more mass to go take Ancients, because you actually can easily sustain through it. And therefore, keep that in mind. If your game is super poop, you can go to the tri-camp. Otherwise, you want to kind of stay in your jungle, around the mid area. You want to stay out on the lanes as much as possible. Lane creeps are the name of the game for URSA, unless your game is not so great. However, you'll notice, of course, he wants to fight, right? When you get your diffusal, you want to do this balance. So let's watch this clip here and just kind of pay attention to what he does with this diffusal. So immediately goes for a smoke, right? So they want to make a play around this diffusal timing. And the advantage of this smoke, the advantage of this movement, you might be like, oh, it's just diffusal. The thing is, look where they're going though. They're specifically going to a portion of the map where if they get a kill, they're going to be instantly able to transition it into Roche. And it sounds simple on paper, and this is one of those plays where I say it out loud and everyone's like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense. Get a kill near the Roche pit, that means that they'll be dead for long enough where then we can go get Roche because we're right next to the pit. However, almost no one actually does this in pubs. Like literally no one has the foresight to do this in pubs. Almost no one has the foresight to do this in pubs. So keep this in mind. It doesn't even have to be a 4-man gang. You might be like, oh, my teammates would never do this. You don't necessarily need a ton of teammates to do this. You maybe only need 3, maybe 2, maybe even yourself. You could get a kill yourself and head into the pit. And as I said, even in pubs, you could literally just walk in and usually it'll be fine. Now, once you have Aegis, your gameplay is going to change because when you have Diffusal Aegis, you generally want to play up on the map. Now, unfortunately in this clip here, this kind of shows the classic Aegis example of overextending way further than you can, even though you do have 2 lives. He also unfortunately burned and raged last second on his dying breath, and so he ends up falling here. So do be careful about that fallacy. Just remember, guys, just because you have Aegis doesn't mean you should make a stupid play. However, I do want you guys, in general, when you get Aegis, I do want you to shift out into the enemy jungle, especially if you have a ward. So let's say you have a ward on this hill. It's very good to farm this camp, this camp, this camp, cut mid-wave, and just be around the area waiting for an unsuspecting core support to walk in, and then you get a free kill with your Diffusal. Next up in terms of item progression, Blink is almost always the item for obvious reasons. Kind of just want to be able to kill people. I don't think there's anything too surprising about that. Once again, even though I kind of mentioned it before, just note how he's popping overpower way before the fight even might start. Like, I really want to stress this just so you guys remember it. Watch, look, they smoke. Even before they smoke, he pops a W. Right? Just in case the fight was to start like literally right here, just in case, then he would not have 2 overpowers, right? If he didn't pop it early, he just wouldn't have 2 overpowers. Now, instead, as the fight breaks out potentially on this high ground, he's gonna have those 2 overpowers up. Next up, please buy BKB, guys. I can't stress this enough. I know a lot of you guys are gonna be tempted to buy Basher, to buy Deso, to buy, Swift Blink, something stupid. Please don't. Just buy a BKB. Just for me, all right? Just for Papa Speed. I even want you to comment it, all right? We're gonna do an oath, all right? Comment in the comment section down below. I will buy BKB 3rd item. Please, just do it for me, okay? That's all I ask for I was gonna say for Christmas, but it's Halloween. It's all I ask for Halloween, all right? That's it. Another important concept to understand on URSA is playing with a +1 stun. Just in general, you obviously can't kill heroes like Storm, Ember, Void Spirit, Puck, Quap very easily until your later Basher timing. Even then, it's very hard. Like 1 bash often isn't good enough. It's just not long enough of a stun. And as a result, I love what he's doing here, which is setting up in a side lane, playing with his Wind Ranger, and they're able to get a massive Storm Spirit pickoff. That was a huge play for this game because this play leads into a huge team fight where they get another Disruptor kill and eventually end up taking a ton of map control as well as a net worth advantage. Also, more good news for URSA. Outside of the fact that his E was recently buffed, even though it wasn't too significant, it definitely matters. Basher was recently buffed. In the recent patch, the item was reduced in cost, and so yeah, this hero is technically a bit better. The next thing to consider against URSA is that you're not really a siege hero. You can siege with Aegis because you have ulti, so like you can try. But just in general, don't force high ground. Whenever you have an advantage like this, you want to play just for farm. Like, essentially, the enemy team, more often than not in pubs, like, no joke, I was doing a live coaching session on my Twitch recently, which, by the way, you guys should go follow in the description. But basically, what I realized was, it was an ancient game, so this was, like, I believe 4K-ish? And the students' team fell behind. They fell wildly behind. And instead of ever looking for an opportunity to essentially find a gap, right, maybe pick someone off, because the enemy team was really split up. They were playing 3 lanes. They were constantly in a position to be picked off. But no, they didn't do anything, and most players never do anything. They just sit in their base, and so when you're ahead like this, the biggest advantage you can do is just really to take over the map, to apply aggression. Even here, you can see he goes for a smoke play with his Wind Ranger, which I really like. I just love this combination and how well they're playing around at this game. And as a result of this, you can see that he is second highest in net worth, and you might be like, oh my god, Speed, he got both Aegises and he's only second highest? All right, guys. The Jug has a Magnus, all right? Jug has a Magnus and a Storm Spirit who hasn't been farming very much. You can obviously see the difference here, even just between CS. Storm is quite a bit behind the Lash. So this is even a game where he doesn't have that much farm priority because they have a Leshrac. They even have a Sand King, who's another Wave Shove hero. And so keep that in mind. And next, let's take a look at this high ground siege as he gets initiated on. I just want to say in teamfights in general, it's important to understand that even though you do have a blink tagger and you do have a Q, like you have a lot of mobility, it's important not to get too like caught up and jump the backline. A lot of people get overconfident. They're just like, yep, I'm gonna go jump the backline. And then what ends up happening is their team has no one to protect them, right? Like there's no one to protect the backline and their team just gets destroyed, right? And so it's very often best case scenario to just really stay close to your team and kill the first person you can when you have BKB, of course. When the game is earlier on, hopefully this makes sense, guys, but like early game, when you don't have BKB and you only have like phase boots defusal or even less, you don't want to run in the middle. You don't want to go on the first person you see. Unless, of course, they're completely isolated, then yeah, you should. But in the early game, you need to find someone on the side. You need to look for someone who's stunned, right? You need to look for people who can't fight back easily because URSA just, you know, he's squishy in the early game. He dies to magical damage. Now he's got a Satanic, he's got a BKB, he's got a Titan Sliver. You know, I mean, he's got all these items where he's fine. He's got an Abaddon behind him. So he can just protect his team. He can play the, you know, the brawly, burly guy who just sits on the front. And that's going to work out very well because he tanks an RP, tanks, you know, some Grimstroke spells, tanks a ton of everything. And then eventually he's just going to hop onto the Disruptor, pick up the easy kill, and continue to make sure his team is safe. And to end off the video, that is why URSA is one of the best heroes when he gets farm in the game right now. But really do keep in mind, you can even see with his talents, it's very much about scaling into this hero that can frontline, scaling into this hero that can initiate. But remember, guys, early game, URSA's not that. Don't run at towers. Don't do that. He hasn't done that this game. The only time he's hit towers or dove is when his team made it a very clear, concerted effort and everyone was in position. Also, he generally had BKB and Aegis at those times. So please be very careful about diving. For the most part, you want to be farming. Focus on your later timings. I can't stress enough how bad people are at understanding that on URSA, especially as, you know, the game has developed. And yeah, you can see in this team fight here, he is put wildly out of position, but because of his pure net worth advantage, he's able to pop Satanic, and he's more than fine. And he sets up for a very easy set of spellcasting from his teammates. I mean, Sand King's job, like just to look at it from Sand King's perspective, because I think this is interesting, guys. A lot of people don't get it. When the URSA goes in first, it's so easy for Sand King to understand, like, okay, what's my job? Basically, he just has to follow up the URSA or protect the URSA. He doesn't have to do more than that. And you can see in this clip here, Oscar was just waiting on the side, waits for the storm to jump in, stuns up the storm. He can now kite out. And it's basically just going to be Oscar kiting out, waiting on the side, letting the URSA frontline, and eventually kiting back in. You can see just such an easy two-man. He didn't even have blink up, and he could hit a two-man stun. That's how you know the URSA didn't overextend too much, did get skewered, but didn't overextend too hard, and the URSA is farmed enough where he can buy enough time. People don't understand how much impact your job does. Like when you are playing safe lane, every item timing, every step you take has so much more impact than you think, which is kind of a scary idea. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a lot from today's video. I really enjoyed making this video. I like URSA. URSA is one of my favorite carries to play because he's a very, very explosive hero. He's one of those heroes where, honestly, you can go like 0-10 just as easily as you can go like 30-0. And so that's why he's a blast to play. But nonetheless, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.